All right, let's get this show on the road. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special Torn Tuesday. We've
Uh-oh.
got a lot to
I'll
talk
say
about. And this
special.
show has been going on for almost 12 years now with your amiable host, Clifford Quickbeam Broadway, who has
Hello,
written
everybody.
several books with OneRing.net, periodicals. He's done a lot of guest editorials on many websites, and of course wrote and produced Ringers Lord of the Fans, a feature film documentary that chronicled the history of Lord of the Rings fandom through all of the ages, and eventually sold to a major studio, Sony Pictures, after winning several awards at many film festivals. Huge. It is the Trekkies for Lord of the Rings fans. Is that a fair way to say it, Cliff?
You would say that, except our movie doesn't make fun of the fandom the way that Trekkies did originally. That's the big difference. We didn't make fun of our fandom the way that Trekkies did. But yes, hello, welcome to this very special Torn Tuesday. You know what? Remember back in the 80s and the 90s when there was a special version of a sitcom that would come on and the announcer would get all serious? And suddenly, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was being sold to you as tonight on a very special Fresh Prince. And that was when something serious happened and you're like, So tonight, we are also, like the good old days, like that nostalgic sense, we are forewarning our audience that tonight we have a very special episode where the announcer gets all serious. But that's
Not
because
that type of
recently,
special episode. We're not going to be talking about, don't do drugs, kids, and teenage
yeah,
pregnancy and whatever.
it was
Like
always something
that.
dire like that. Yes, it was always something dire, like, someone got hit by a car and lost their mom and they had to talk about death for half an hour.
That's not what we're doing
That's
here.
not what we're doing.
We're
That's not what
talking.
we're doing.
We're not going
However,
to talk about dealing with grief and the death of your mom. We're going to talk about grief and death for the fidelity to Tolkien with all
yeah,
these leaks
maybe.
that are so insane. And we're
Yeah.
watching the chat room. We're live on
Yeah.
YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. I see you on Discord. We're not here to gripe. We're here to celebrate. And I think as we talk about
yeah,
these, you'll
I'll
find
say.
that Cliff and I have differing opinions on the quality of these leaks and storytelling
Yes.
things. And we
Well,
have
yes,
so
and
much to talk about.
we really do have plenty to talk about, and I'm so glad to have a big audience here joining us from all around the world. We are currently broadcasting on Twitter, Twitch,
I
and
just said that. So we've
Facebook
got
and
so much to
YouTube, and
get
yeah, let's
into.
do it all
So
over again.
let's get into
Let's
it.
do it all
A
over
little
again.
programming note at the start of the show. Our friends in Discord want to remind everybody that this weekend is the Tolkien Society's Osmoot. Osmoot, not Tolkien Society. I'm sorry. Signum University is producing Osmoot in Sydney. It is this weekend. Above All Shadows is the theme. And that happens, it starts January 26th, which is just 3 days away. 2 days if you're watching in locally there in that part of the world. And special guest, of course, is the Tolkien professor himself, Corey Olson, founder of the Signum University and the Mythgard Institute. And this is in partnership with the Tolkien Society and Hern Enorath. So this is Sydney, Friday through Sunday. It's a second annual Osmoot. You can go to Signum University and find the event, get your tickets. I'm sure there'll be access if you just show up. But that is this weekend, and everybody in that part of the world should check it out. Of course, Corey, the Tolkien professor, refused to believe us, Cliff, when we told him at the premiere in New York City of Rings of Power who Sauron really was. Corey was one of those guys that was just like, absolutely not. That is a deal breaker for me. There's no way that Halbrand is
Yes.
Sauron. I refuse to believe you. And if it's true, I don't know how much I'm gonna like the show. And turns out he had a lot of good things to say about the show, and we were right in the end. The leak was right.
Yep, that leak was crazy. Um, and that was stuff we found out a long, long, long time before season one actually was broadcast on the air, and we kept our secrets for such a long time, didn't we?
Yeah. Speaking of no
So,
secrets, but another thing before we get going onto the main topic, the Oscar
yes,
nominations were announced today, and
yes,
I just wanted to give you, Cliff, the Miyazaki minute at the start of the show. Go ahead.
thank you. Big, big not surprise. Okay, not a surprise at all that the man named Hayao Miyazaki, master animator and director from Studio Ghibli, has gotten Best Animated Feature nomination for The Boy and the Heron, right there, being distributed in the United States, North America, and worldwide by G Kids. It's still in movie theaters. It has pounced its way to the number one position in the US box office when it was released wide in America. First time ever that a 2D hand-drawn anime film had ever been at the number one in the US box office. And now, an interesting surprise, um, Ginger Hazing's really exciting little film Nimona is the little engine that could. It also got a Best Animated Feature nomination for Nimona, and we've had Ginger Hazing as our guest and talking with us on our show here from time to time. And this is
Nate
interesting.
Stevenson is one of the most talented
Nate Stevenson.
storytellers
Yes,
in Hollywood right now.
indeed.
And of course, Nimona was an animated project based on their graphic novel that was
Their
originally
graphic
was set
novel.
up at Disney, and then
Hmm.
Disney canceled it because they felt it
They said
was
it was not on
too
our brand.
it
Yes.
was it was a little too it was too gay. Let's just say it.
Yep.
So Disney
Yeah.
canceled it, and she negotiated hard to get the rights back, and she shopped it around, and I believe A24 or Annapurna stepped
Annapurna
up,
is the studio.
and
Yes.
now it's an
And they set
Oscar
it up at Netflix.
nominated
Yep.
for Best Animated Feature, right next to Spider
And
Verse,
I
and
was
of course next to The Boy and the Heron.
And I was just going to
Huge.
put a very quick button on that by making note that Nimona was dismissed by Walt Disney Studio as being not our brand. But then the movie Wish, which was the most on brand, super branded Walt Disney brand movie, was completely shut out and ironically did not get a nomination for Best Animated Feature. Instead, it's going to be The Boy and the Heron this year for
You
Best
think it's
Animated
going to
Film.
win?
And now on to the news.
You think
Yes.
it's going to win? And then
Oh,
what? One
yes.
quick
Oh, yeah. Oh,
one.
clearly. Yeah, clearly. I mean, I'm going to copy somebody else's words. I'm just going to say what the guy on
While he's
NPR
looking up
said.
that tweet, I
I'm
will
not looking it up.
notice.
I'm repeating it off the top of my brain. The movie The Boy and the Heron is by orders of magnitude better than any other animated film this year, to use somebody else's quote. And that's the fact. It's going to win. Congratulations, Hayao Miyazaki. You won.
And
There you
Variety
go.
breaks it down per each studio how many Oscar nominations. Shocking that Amazon Prime got no nominations in this list. It got no nominations for Saltburn, its big Oscar push movie.
Yep.
So Amazon Studios still has some work to do, and of course, Rings of Power, which was nominated for 6 Emmy awards last week, did not win any of them, unfortunately. So
Hmm.
that's the Oscar news. Good luck
Mhm.
on that, Cliff, because I know you really want your Miyazaki minute to win. Um,
Well, do you know what? It's just the way it is. And the real question remains, will Miyazaki show up and come here in person to accept his award? That's the big question. Um, uh, Before we get lost in talking about Oscar nominees, which is something I could talk about all
well, we're
day,
done with that.
um, we're not going to do all that. What other things besides Saltburn did Prime Video as a studio have? I think, yeah, Saltburn,
It
which I
doesn't
also
matter
saw,
because that was the one that they were
that
trying to
was
get
it.
nominated, and it
Yeah,
didn't get
that was the big one.
any nominations.
Okay.
So just like Rings of Power
Okay.
was their big push, and it got
Yeah.
6 nominations, and then it didn't win any.
Right.
So all right, the big news that everybody's been talking about, Cliff, is something that
boy.
Torn
Here we
has
go.
been known for a long time, and that is leaks and spoilers to everything. And we posted this
Yeah.
last Thursday. The Spy Report, The Rings of Power Season 2, expanding on Sauron in huge new ways. And the reason he's in the headline is because most of the spoilers, if not all of them, have to do directly or indirectly with Sauron. And scrolling through, we're gonna dive into the whole list, but we give everybody plenty of warning. You have to scroll twice to get to it. But we have nearly 30,
There you go.
30 new leaks, and even more rumors
Wow.
at the bottom that some people even missed. So these are long held rumors that we've been sitting on, as we said last year. As soon as the writer's strike happened, we here at Torn Tuesday were going to honor the writer's strike by not leaking anything that the writers would have created for Rings of Power. And we've held on to that. And then we held on to it through the actor's strike. And you know what? Then it was Christmas time. And, no one wants to be inundated with end of year stuff. So we've been holding on to a lot of stuff. Here's the thing. We saw these leaks on 4chan, and I'm putting up this screenshot now because this is a screenshot from 4chan, which is a dirty anonymous website that's been around for 20 years or so. A lot of bad stuff happens because of it and through it, and a lot of crazy stuff happens because of it and through it. And I
That
will
is
say
fair.
this.
That's probably a more fair introduction than 4chan has ever gotten. But yeah.
So the thing about 4chan, it is totally anonymous. You don't need an account. You don't need an email. You can post. Anyone can post. It's the most anonymous website probably on the internet. It's probably more anonymous than even holding Bitcoin at this point. And 4chan is known for leaks, and they are 50-50 on truth and accuracy when it comes to movie and TV show leaks. And I will say this, when it comes to Rings of Power Season 1, almost everything that leaked on 4chan last time became true. In fact...
Okay, let's talk about a couple of those line items real quick to remind the audience.
The big thing was the Sauron versus Halbrand thing, which, Cliff, you absolutely knew was true. We did not leak that. We personally did not leak that. And then it leaked on 4chan, and people refused to believe it, saying, that's crazy, it's insane.
Yeah, that Sauron would be floating out on a raft, lost at sea, and would bump into Galadriel, also adrift, lost at sea, and they would, quote unquote, strike up a relationship, unquote. Right? Remember how bad that was? And that turned out to be true. And
then a lot of other plot points that people thought were crazy, that Mithril... saves trees and a bunch of other stuff. People were just like, what? There's no way that's real. And so look, Reddit is 50-50 overall on the entertainment biz, but with Rings of Power, they're probably 80-20 shooting good. Here's the thing. I love our Discord, and I tell everybody every week, join our Discord, because an enterprising person in our Discord, shout out to Yarrow, found a way to find old deleted 4chan posts through a Russian indexing service. So that's why there's Russian at the top of this screenshot. So not only is 4chan anonymous, stuff gets deleted at the bottom of the page. Once it's gone off the page, it's gone off their servers forever. You can't find it. But the Russians are archiving everything on the internet. Of course they are. So someone in our Discord, who obviously knows how to use this website and might speak Russian, figured out how to look at 4chan posts from Friday, January 5th, almost 2 weeks later, to dig this up. So that's how important the extra work, thanks to our friends in the Discord, and that's why our Discord gets to hear a lot of stuff first. The reason we ran this is because Cliff and I have heard a lot of things over the last year during our spoiler strike. Some things, about 40% of the things listed on this 4chan post, we have been able to confirm privately with people that we've been talking to for months and months and months. So when we read this, I was like, oh yeah, most of this checks out. And we're going to get into why it checks out and when we knew about it in this show today. And then next week, we're going to put together a panel of fans, some familiar faces you might know, a lot of long-term Torn staffers. And next week, we're going to rate each of these 30 bullet points on whether we feel it's accurate and true or totally false, or maybe, just maybe, it's in the show. That's next week. This week, we're going to tell you how accurate this stuff is based on Cliff and my insider knowledge on this. 40% is not most. We'll get to that. So to kick off, before we get any further, we are a news platform, Cliff, and our due diligence is to ask Amazon. And that's the first thing everybody wants to know. Like, hey, nice for posting. Did you even ask Amazon? Well, we did. And we got a response. Let's see if I can bring it up. Let's go full screen on this one. Amazon Studios gave us this exclusive quote. Looks like the internet is having fun with the wild rumors. As you know, we don't comment on speculation. Cliff, did you expect that comment? Did we lose Cliff? He's muted. I can't hear you, Cliff.
Thank you. I was just saying that this particular non-response is typical, and it reinforces the studio's ongoing position to say nothing and acknowledge nothing at all. So thank you for the non-response, Amazon Prime, but they have nothing to say, but you guys go ahead and speculate. You guys go ahead and have fun sitting over there at the little kids' table, and we're going to be over here at the adults' table doing our job. And that's their general attitude. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So it leaves us, again, in a vacuum. And I would like to address some of the concerns that have come up since I published my analysis and a little bit of conversation that I had with the fans about my thoughts on this.
I've got a screenshot of that real quick, but before we get there,
I
want to...
We'll get to that.
I pulled another quote from official articles and interviews with Amazon Studios, folks. And here we go. Vernon Sanders is the head of Amazon US and global television. He runs TV for Amazon. Quote, we believe that all of that work and all of that security and all of that production will actually be to the benefit of our customers. I think some fans in our Discord took issue with that quote this morning, saying, we're not customers, we're loyal followers and fans of your show and J.R.R. Tolkien. Like, it just, but I think the calling us customers are fine. Jennifer Salke is the head of Amazon MGM Studios. She runs the whole studio that actually produces the content. And Jennifer says, anybody who's scrutinizing, chasing flyers, or trying to peek in any crack they can to get details, or even speculating, that's all about fan engagement and passion. So we view it as such. Speculation is welcome. So before we get into the next thing, I wanted to put this comment out. Based on this comment from Jennifer Salke, the head of Amazon MGM Studios, they encourage and they enjoy the speculation and the rumors and the leaks. And this is in their own words. I believe these quotes were pulled from Vanity Fair or Empire Magazine, some official, these are official quotes. So everything we're talking about today is kind of approved by Amazon. They approve of this fan speculation. They love to see the fan engagement. You better believe they're paying attention to all of the commentary surrounding these leaks. You better believe
They
they've
are.
got people in our Discord and on Twitter and on Reddit looking at the fan response. So it's really important to keep that in mind as we talk about this next thing that Cliff wanted to get into, because according to Amazon right here, they kind of like it. Don't you think, Cliff?
Yes. Yeah, this seems to be um a position of go ahead and make hay with it. You guys can just sit there and talk yourselves into a corner. But yeah, I agree with making that important distinction that you started off with, Justin. I really want everyone to understand the difference between a customer and a fan. All right. And I really hope the studio also has uh, that regard and that distinction in their mind when they come to making the decisions about what to reveal, what not to reveal. So,
But a
any,
couple tweets from people got on your mind today. Let me bring one up from a big account that we love, Daily ROP, who says, "I'm sorry to be blunt, but the way this is written up seems deeply irresponsible. If you write an analysis of rumors by saying much of its contents have been corroborated fully, and then say which are correct, and then say and not just repeat the most controversial ones." This opinion was shared by several other fans as well, Cliff. And so talk a little bit more about you seeing these comments and how you're taking it.
well, I mean, the first thing that I wanted to do was apologize to my readership, and I did. The first thing I did was apologize to my readership for in any way being irresponsible, because it's not my gist. That's not my spirit that was behind what I was saying. But it is important to me now that I've seen season one, and now that I've been through the experience of sitting quietly on news that I had a long, long, long time ago, that benefited no one. It brought no benefit to me except a lot of personal anxiety. And it also brought a little bit of huh, what could we have done as a fandom if we'd talked about this way ahead of time and had gotten our feelings out in the open and had gotten square with our, conventional wisdom? There is the individual take. Everybody's got their own individual take, but collectively speaking, we put ourselves as a fandom at a disadvantage for sitting on the Halbrand secret for so long, and I don't want to do that anymore. At the risk of, and really, much, much love and respect to Daily Rings of Power and how much I enjoy interacting with the fans who really love Rings of Power, love it, and they're more attached to it, perhaps, than I would have been. And that's okay. I love all these fans all the same. As much as I appreciate the fans, many of whom are very close friends of mine who balk at the whole thing and don't want to say anything nice about it. And they just don't want to get involved in a conversation about Rings of Power. They just don't care for it. They don't like it. And that's fine. But sitting somewhere in between is the idea that we have a conventional wisdom amongst us as a community. And I do think it is healthier and smarter, much smarter, for me to not sit on secrets at the OneRing.net for 2 years plus, instead bringing it out into the open, and we can look at it to discern for ourselves what level of it is reasonable and what level of it is not reasonable at all for a Tolkien adaptation. And of course, along the way, we're going to be able to parse the difference between what's really going to stick and what's total BS. 4chan being notorious for being 4chan and it having a reputation for people posting, nonsense that can be easily refuted and is never backed up. We're somewhere in that middle area, but a little bit better because we already confirmed from other people we know close to the production and other spies that are sent to us. A little bird landed on my windowsill just the other day and told me some more secrets. At this point, I think we as a fandom are better off to air it all out, talk about everything, even the ugliness of it, and see, is this really ambitious? Are we being, yanked around by somebody who just doesn't care about the Tolkien storytelling? Or are we being pulled into a really ambitious and far-reaching, interesting take that is a bit more ballsy and a little bit more brave than other adaptations have been? Where are we? This is the litmus test. It is not for me to say. It is certainly not for me to decide categorically. It is for me as an entertainment journalist, quote unquote, and for lack of a better term, an observer of popular culture. It is my job to put everything out there now instead of sitting on it so that we can really talk about it as a real larger group of people. We can canvass everyone, get their opinions, and we can figure out where the meter will rest. Because the meter is going to go this way or this way on our conventional wisdom. And,
And
Justin is probably with
and,
me very much on this. We are better off by having large scale, holistic conversations than we are sitting in our little corners of the room, bitching and moaning and complaining. Not as good as us coming out with everything that we might know or might suspect, and at least getting some distance and some perspective on it. That was the point of all this.
and look,
Okay.
I'm reading your comments. Hello to Varking Runesong, the one of
Hello,
the
Varking.
moderators of the subreddit Lord of the Rings on Prime, and helped create our little Discord, which has over 5,000 members right here. And look,
Thank you, Varking. Varking's so kind.
Varking
What a kind fellow.
as a moderator of Reddit, I'm sure Varking has to delete posts from frustrated people on the production that might have just got fired, might have just got laid off or let go early, and they're angry and they want to spoil something in the show. And it's Varking's duty to keep the craziest spoilers, just as we
Yeah.
did about Sauron being Halbrand. We kept on that. Here's the thing: what
We did.
Cliff, did you learn anything from season 1 about keeping that huge Sauron secret, and why do you feel that we have to act different this time around?
Did I learn anything from having kept that big secret? Yeah. I learned that the Tolkien audience has a very limited appetite for mystery boxing, and they much prefer dramatic irony, which is the way that Tolkien wrote his stories. Okay? It is that is definitely my big takeaway. I learned the limits of the taste of this fandom.
And
And
that's
this
who we
fandom has no
serve.
taste for the mystery boxing approach. They don't have a taste for it. They really
And
don't.
and ultimately, that's what the OneRing.net has always served. We are first and foremost by and for fans of J.R.R. Tolkien. It's literally at the
Yes.
bottom of this.
Yes.
We're not in service of the studios, and we're not shills of a show. We're in service of fans, and the things we learned from season 1 reactions. And
Hmm.
again, Cliff and I told Nerd of the Rings and Tolkien Professor the big secret before they saw episode 1, and they just were angrily refused to believe it. So there is, to what
Hmm.
Cliff just said,
True.
there is a limit to the appetite of mystery boxing. And that's why we feel some of the stuff just needs to get out. And I can tell you, it's been so rough over the last year not leaking any of this, because I've wanted to talk about it openly with all of you fans so much.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
when we get comments like this from Daily ROP, and by the way, they weren't the only one. And many people did slide into our DMs, and I saw your messages in the chat room saying, hey, they should have taken this offline, and DM'd you personally. Well, we had people in our Discord, probably important people that want to stay anonymous, saying the same thing. Like, I don't like how you guys did that. And I'm here today, part of this show. I'm going to show you right now. We've always been doing that. Okay, we've always been doing this. Look,
Yes, we have.
more audition
Yes, we have.
scripts. The OneRing.net. Here you go. July 11th, 1999, 2001. 2.5 years before the first Fellowship of the Ring came out, we were posting pages of the audition scripts featuring Legolas and Merry and Aragorn and Pippin dialogue. That's just what we do. Galadriel. We were leaking stuff on March 9th, 2000. Literally a year and a half before the movies were even coming out. Galadriel has struck again. Our favorite ninja assassin is on the job. And here we are. If we scroll down to giant spoilers,
There
it
you
says,
go.
it seems the rumors are true and Craig Parker has been cast as Haldir. I also saw some information regarding Celeborn, the husband of my namesake. His casting description calls for a strong and prominent facial structure, narrow eyeline with a long face. That is how Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings casting director described Celeborn. A strong and prominent facial structure, narrow eyeline with a long face. They say in this rumor, a year and a half before we see Celeborn in the movies, Celeborn has been cast, yet the name will be made public on April 4th. So we held on to that one to confirm that. And then in this report from 2000, we have a report on what scene Peter Jackson will make a cameo in, and we leaked it will be in the Prancing Pony Inn. Here we are in the year 2000. In the year 2000, that we were leaking Peter Jackson was going to cameo in the Prancing Pony. So, Cliff, we've always been doing this, haven't we?
Indeed we have. Indeed we have. This is decades worth of holding on to secrets and deciding, when to judiciously release them. But making a television series that goes over years and years of production is different than, it's a bit different. It's a bit different, but I'll tell you why.
Well,
we've got the feeling that season one maybe left some fans feeling a little bit burned. Some of them really loved it, and some fans were just like feeling. So, in light of that, we thought it would be better to bring forth all the rumors that are floating around, and that would at least get our thoughts and our conventional wisdom into the open space, the open public space of conversation. And then nobody would be disappointed or surprised if the show is received a certain way, because we would have already crossed that, goalpost in telling everyone how we feel about it already.
And then one of our long-term editors and moderators, Demosthenes, reminded me about this link dated January of 2013. So this was right in the middle of
11 years
the
ago.
Hobbit years. This is right in the middle of the Hobbit years. And remember, the Hobbit was taking big swings away from the lore. They stretched the Hobbit into 3 movies. So there was a lot of concern from fans, just like we heard this week from Daily ROP and others, that you guys shouldn't be spoiling all this like this. Well, we heard the same thing 13 years ago, 12 years ago, 10 years ago, when it came around to The Hobbit. And Demosthenes, there's a link in the description on YouTube to this. But the debate around whether we should be posting like we always have, he wrote a nice long article about the defense of spoilers, right?
Yes, good stuff.
And so, I feel like we're having the same debates we had 10 years ago, which are the same debates we had 20 years ago.
Yes.
And he quotes, to quote Demosthenes, anything that prematurely reveals a previously unknown plot point, the design of a particular set, or the look of a monster or costume in an adapted work, indubitably a spoiler. Although the original work itself may be well known, the contents of the adaptation itself tend to be shrouded in mystery. It's this unusual conjunction of knowledge and ignorance that is precisely the problem. And Cliff, we have talked about here on the show in recent months how Priscilla Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien's daughter, said that he did not write mysteries on purpose.
That's
Mysteries are
right.
not a Middle Earth thing.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
so
Exactly.
that's our defense of spoilers. By the way, also, I found this article from May 22nd, 2022,
Hmm.
of John Rhys Davies in Wellington shooting with a report that he's in Wellington, must be doing reshoots. And you may recall that John is doing the voice of Treebeard as well as playing Gimli in the Two Towers. Again, remember, Treebeard is not in the first movie, he's only in the Two Towers. So this is 6 months, this is more than 6 months before the Two Towers came out, and it was already common knowledge, according to this report right here in May 2002, you may recall that John is doing the voice of Treebeard. So it wasn't a spoiler. It wasn't a big deal. We weren't even trying to hide it. It must have been announced already by the production that John Rhys Davies was doing the voice of Treebeard and Gimli at the same time.
Right.
You know, so if it was already common knowledge there, you know, like, Gimli gonna be Treebeard? How's that gonna work? And a lot of fans were angry before the movie came out. How dare Treebeard sound like Gimli? I don't want Treebeard to be talking like jokes, dwarven jokes, and and Cliff, your nickname is Quickbeam, one of the Ents. Like, there was really
Yes,
concern from fans that they didn't want Treebeard ruined.
they didn't. And I tell you what, here's the concept. Fans didn't want Treebeard ruined. Did you hear the way that syntax, that language just came out of your mouth? There's always that feeling that if they get it wrong, it's going to be ruined. Or if they change too much of it, it's going to be ruined. And as I said in my article, looking at the leaks from 4chan, we expect and understand a reasonable amount of things will have to be changed in any adaptation. This is always a given. What matters is how much you can stomach wild changes that may be playing fast and loose with the original text. So there is, there's just, and how do we reach that middle ground? How do we, as a fandom, realize this is our high water mark of what we want, and this is our low, low, low point of what we're going to tolerate? And the only way to get that conversation out there is to do what we did and get all the rumors out, all the junk that might be real, might not be real. Higgy Baby in our live chat offers a very good question. How does the OneRing.net view the difference between rumors, leaks, and spoilers? Because there's a fine, fine distinction between these three things. And I know, Justin, you can come in to this with me and offer some opinion, but let's start. Okay. Knowing the difference between these three things, rumor slash leak, a spoiler. Okay. To differentiate between rumors, rumors are things that we hear from verifiable sources and unverifiable sources. It stays in the rumor category until we get more information from other people who are much, much, much closer. And then it becomes not a rumor anymore. It becomes a leak. That is when stuff is leaked from the people who have signed non-disclosure agreements that are many pages long, and yet still they leak information to us. This happens. It's been happening for decades, and it's okay. We protect their identity and nobody gets fired and everything's fine. But a spoiler is it's not as much a concern anymore, because I really wanted to keep the Halbrand Galadriel secret for so long, because I thought that was a spoiler, really, that if we just talked about it too much, it might really destroy any of the creative tension that they were trying to build throughout season one. And I didn't want to be, I mean, speaking collectively, we at the OneRing.net didn't want to be so destructive in revealing details that it would just mess up everybody's viewing experience. But now that the barn door is open and all the animals have left the barn, And I mean Waldreg's barn. Yep, that's right. Waldreg has secret stuff hidden under the floorboards of his barn. But now that Waldreg's barn door is open and all the animals are left, even the ones that are sick, jeez, I am no longer prioritizing any concern about what is a spoiler and what's not. At this point, it seems the conventional wisdom of our fandom is that they would much rather know ahead of time what is to be set at the table, paraphrasing that Gandalf quote. They really want to know what is to be set because season one set a whole bunch of stuff on the table that didn't, some of it worked great, like Khazad-dûm and the relationship between Elrond and Prince Durin. That stuff worked great and it was really beautiful. But other stuff about the Halbrand, Galadriel ship, a lot of people are shipping that, but a lot of people aren't. And like you said at the top of the show, Justin, the Tolkien professor himself didn't want to believe it was true. He's like, no, that's too much. That's not going to be true.
Also, I want to
So
say, and
I just
Cliff,
don't care about spoilers anymore. I don't care.
and Cliff, you and I have talked recently. Now that we're reappraising season one for what it is, it's quite obvious that things changed in post-production. Things changed from what
Yes.
leaked out in season one and what the final episodes looked like. And we've documented a lot of those changes. The season got cut from 10 episodes to 8. The episodes got cut from 90 minutes to under an hour for the most part. So a lot of stuff changed and got cut. A lot of leaks that we reported on did not show up in the final edit. And what we found out through all the visual effects bake-offs and award show stuff is that visual effects changed a lot of things. I mean, they were using visual effects to change the icons on Halbrand's pouch. I mean, the amount of money they spent changing things in post-production, and by the way, let me remind you, a full actor was replaced. They filmed almost everything with Tom Budge as Celebrimbor, and then when they finally got to the edit, they realized, hey, this kid isn't working, and they recast Celebrimbor completely.
Yes.
So things can absolutely change during production. So when we say what's a spoiler, what's a leak, what's a rumor, at this point, Amazon has the power, the digital power, to change whatever they want. So right now, everything's a leak. Everything's a leak. And if Amazon's paying attention, which we know they are, to your feedback on Facebook, on Twitter, on these chat comments, on Nerd of the Rings comment thing in our Discord, Amazon's paying attention. And if they see that they're wildly off the mark, like, they may just change it. So that's why we have a duty at this point, especially with the reaction to the craziness of season one, to just report on stuff as we hear it. So,
do you know how much I like that? And I would love to. I want to repeat that again. Let's rewind the tape and roll that beautiful bean footage. Justin, I want everyone in the back row of the auditorium to hear that one more time. It is true that anything could change in post-production. It is very, very true that if they get wind with a year and a half still left on pickup shoots and post-production and all the other stuff that might yet happen, if they're still a year plus away from broadcast, because I'm assuming it's not going to show up on our TVs until 2025, but season 2 might be something that they revisit and rewrite and work things out differently after they hear our responses about this. And we do need to talk about the most disturbing 600-pound gorilla in the room, and that is the Tom Bombadil Goldberry rumor, that part of the rumor. I mean, let's get there. So let's talk about it. It's bad. It's the bad stuff.
Well,
I mean,
So like
there's
I said,
a lot to talk about.
I think
let's get to that.
Next week we're going to go point by point on everything and talk about
okay, we will.
each one's
but then let's just
validity.
hit that one for now.
Yeah, today we're just going to talk about the big stuff.
Well, this is the big stuff. The fact that they're trying to introduce Tom Bombadil is great. Let's have him be part of it. But like I said in my article, he should be used sparingly. Even Professor Tolkien himself knew how anachronistic the presence of Tom Bombadil was, and superfluous to the overall story of the War of the Ring. So instead of Tom
Wait, wait,
Bombadil
wait.
being a
Cliff, hold on. I found this
what?
article from April
Oh
of
dear.
last year when we first reported the Tom Bombadil rumor. Remember, guys, this is right before the strikes happened. I'm telling you, we had the gossip until the strikes happened, and then we respected the
Yeah,
writers' strike, and we love all the
yeah,
writers of the show, and we love all the quality of their writing, and none of the reactions we're making have to do with the writers themselves. It's the overall direction of
right.
the show, which are the showrunners are in charge of. But
That is true.
Screen Rant Cliff posted this article: why Rings of Power introducing Tom Bombadil would be a big mistake. And I thought that was out of tone, but based on what you just said, Tom is a careful character.
I
Like,
said, I said Professor Tolkien used him sparingly because even Tolkien knew how superfluous Tom Bombadil was to the overall purpose of telling that story. The War of the Ring had had to be told. That was the story to be told. And Professor Tolkien was smart enough to not use Tom Bombadil except as a kind of pastoral visiting cameo. That's what he was. He was a pastoral visiting character who had a cameo, helped the hobbits get out of a little predicament with the Barrow Wights. But this is like not introducing Tom as a major component of the cosmology or the angelic beings that are the Valar and the Maiar. We're not connecting Tom to any of that. I mean, Tolkien didn't bother doing that. So why is it this TV show needs to do it? And the rumor
hold
is
on.
that
When we
uh,
reported the Tom Bombadil rumor in April of last year, almost everybody was united, except for this article. Almost everybody was united in how exciting, batshit, insane, crazy, wild, fun this show could have with Bombadil. Am I wrong that the
sure,
overall measure of tone from fandom was like, cool, if we're gonna get weird, let's get weird. This is gonna be fun. Tom Bombadil in the Second
absolutely.
Age, who can meet? But this
Well,
new
even
rumor,
I shared that sentiment. I shared that sentiment as well at the
so
time.
this new rumor is Tom Bombadil is actually Morgoth in penance. He's been cursed by in the
Mandos.
history. He's been cursed by Mandos, and rather than getting thrown out into the void, which I don't know how you would put that on screen, he is
Yeah,
he's
he was
he's living out his punishment or his penance as good-natured, jolly old Bombadilio, and with his wife
It's so
Goldberry.
bonkers. It is the most bonkers rumor, and we will talk more about that next week. But I just want to talk about the single one because this one part of it, if it becomes true, would really break the cosmology of what we know about Middle Earth and what we know about the Silmarillion. It would break the cosmology in a big, stupid way, and I
Just
don't like it. I don't like
Well,
it.
you're going to have to
I don't
explain
like
that,
it. I don't like it.
justify that, because everything
Okay.
that I've ever heard
Okay.
about Tom Bombadil, there have been fan theories that he's Eru himself. He's out of space and time. Remember,
That's the big one. That's
the
the big
ring
fan
has
theory.
no
Yes.
effect on him in the Fellowship of the Ring. The ring has no effect on him. So the theory was
Which is
this.
why he comes up in conversation in the Council of Elrond, and the hobbits say, why don't we have Tom Bombadil take the ring? It won't hurt him, it won't corrupt him. He can carry it all the way down to Mordor. And Gandalf immediately says, no, we're going to nix that idea. And he explains why. Because Professor Tolkien knew better than to take an overpowered character that was just supposed to be put in as a cameo appearance and suddenly make him a major player in all the metaphysics of this world. And it was not compatible with the way Tolkien wanted to write that story. So I I was with all the other fans saying, yeah, let's get weird and let's bring Tom Bombadil into this new TV show because otherwise we would never ever get Tom Bombadil of any kind on any adaptation. But that is not to say use the character so egregiously, and you're going to use Tom Bombadil to play fast and loose with the cosmological rules of the Valar and the Maiar. You're not going to do that. And that's not what he was written for. And that's disappointing to think that it's being put forth as a big episode. It's bonkers. It's on the face of it, it was written on the 4chan post in the most unbelievable way. And a lot of people say this might be the clue to it being junk. Maybe this is the big indicator that this piece of the rumor is just El Garbajo. Because the person said on the 4chan post, confirming a long-held fan theory, which is not true. There was never a long-held fan theory. There never, ever, ever was. That Tom Bombadil was, in fact, a reincarnation of Morgoth living out in penance to make good against all the bad things he did. That's just not true. It was never a long-held fan theory. Maybe it's junk. Maybe it's just complete garbage.
And look, and we talked about it at the top of the show. I introduced Cliff as an author, a writer, and a producer of the history of Lord of the Rings fandom. You have documented all of the craziness from Gandalf for president to, Frodo buttons to, everything that fandom has ever embraced and Tolkien loved or didn't like. And we've talked on the show how the Nazis embraced Tolkien, the fascists in Italy embraced Tolkien, the hippies in America embraced Tolkien. We've documented everything, almost everything. And Cliff, you're saying you've never, ever heard of this idea, this concept of Bombadil being Morgoth ever in your adventures?
Never. Not even in my wildest dreams has anyone made even the joke about that.
Well, let me bring up the actual 4chan post again. At the bottom of this green section, it says Tom Bombadil and Goldberry are in an episode. They are played by the same actor and actress as Morgoth and Ungoliant. The show confirmed that. So Cliff, let's stop there. Tom Bombadil and Goldberry are in an episode. We'd confirmed that last April. They are played by the same actor as Melkor and Ungoliant. Cliff, why couldn't that be just like Gimli and Treebeard? That statement. They are played by the same actor as Morgoth and Ungoliant. Is there a chance that Bombadil is just an actor flexing his voiceover muscles, and Morgoth himself will be a fully CGI character, or Bombadil will be a fully CGI character a la Gollum?
Do you know what? All things being equal, that might be a tiny possibility, but in that case, you're saying that the casting of the person as the actor who was Morgoth and is now just being cast as Tom, it is not connected within the world. Okay? Is that what you're saying? That it's just an actor in the same role, but doesn't imply any connections in world. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what
in which case, that's okay.
So that's what I originally thought reading the green text, from 4chan. If you stop there, it makes sense, Cliff, doesn't it?
But you don't stop there. What's written there is so specific. But if you just stop there, then it's okay that John Rhys Davies played, Treebeard. It's totally cool.
Right.
He was really great at it.
I'm on board with the rumor until the next sentence says the show will confirm the long-held fan theory that Tom and Goldberry are Melkor and Ungoliant serving out their punishment bestowed upon them by Mandos. So it's in the leak. That is not us adding extra speculation. In this leak, a leak that confirms something we reported last April. A leak last April where we confirmed that there were call sheets on the production day for actors named Bombadil. We've confirmed that there were code names for Bombadil on set. It's almost a given that Bombadil was actually filmed. And This is the extra thing that we did not report last April. When I got this information, I was told in these words that Bombadil would be a familiar face. Bombadil would be a
Okay.
familiar face.
Okay.
But I assumed that that meant it would be a famous actor. When I heard that phrase, Bombadil will be a familiar face, I thought, oh, it's going to be a famous actor that we're all familiar with. Maybe it's a guy like Nick Offerman. Maybe it's Jack Black. Maybe it's someone fun like that. What I did not consider was the idea that familiar face meant he is Morgoth, a face we would see in episode 1.
Right. I'm with you on that. I'm totally with you on that. Um, if if it's being suggested by this post that Mandos had put a different judgment on Morgoth than the one that we've read about in the Silmarillion, that that makes it seem like it's not just a silly rumor, but it seems to be injected with the possibility that the lore is being changed by the writers of the show in accordance with their vision of the Silmarillion. Mandos sent Morgoth into the void in chains beyond the door of night. And yes, as Daisy Kim in our live chat and other people have appropriately noted, at the end of the world, at the end of all time, there will be a Ragnarok-like Armageddon type of thing where the Valar come back into the final battle against, and I mean the final battle against Morgoth, who will come back out of the void, and he's going to make trouble again, and there will be like a final showdown. And that is a huge way that many mythologies around the world are built, with some big final showdown between good and evil. So this 4chan leak seems to be already digging its feet into the ground with the concept that the writers of the show are changing the Silmarillion to such a degree that Mandos had given a different judgment against Morgoth and would have him wandering around in a physical form seeking atonement for his evil deeds as
Cliff,
Tom Bombadil.
It's
It's a crazy idea. What a crazy idea.
on this Tom Bombadil stuff. We have breaking news from the chat room. Someone
Uh-oh.
has
Here we go.
actually found an old Reddit post. Let's bring it up full screen. Someone
Okay, what is
has
this?
actually found it. Could
Ooh.
Tom Bombadil be all the good in Melkor that he expunged from his being? This was posted
Okay.
in 2019, in the summer where the scripts were actually being written.
Hmm.
In 2019,
Okay.
the scripts were being written and
Uh-huh.
finalized. And
So
this
it's
post was posted to Tolkien fans on Reddit. And
not
so, Cliff,
not a
what's your
long-held fan theory that's just from 2019. So no.
This is the only mention we've ever found in the history of fandom in the 22 years of the OneRing.net message boards and the craziest theories across all of our media. The first mention we could ever find of Bombadil possibly being Melkor is in a Reddit post from 2019, the same summer that
Wow.
the scripts were being written. Cliff, what do you think of that concept? Bombadil being all the good in Melkor that he expunged from his being.
I don't take a shine to that theory. I don't think I could possibly take a liking to that theory. I really can't.
Why not?
Because
Why doesn't it work?
um, at that point in the story, even with the things that were posthumously published by Christopher, Morgoth did not have anything in the fiber of his existence except for what was dictated by the music of the Ainur. And that's actually part of the spoilers. That's part of the 4chan story that season two of Rings of Power will show us the music of the Ainur and the Ainulindale. Okay, that is the opening chapter of the Silmarillion. As the elves would call it, the Ainulindale is the song that was the creation myth of all of this cosmos. Within this universe, Iluvatar would create all of existence and space and time, and would place within it the planet that would be Arda. And all of this stuff would take shape according to the music that they made together before the physical manifestation. There was the spiritual manifestation of them singing together. And who was the discordant one? It was Morgoth. And ever since Morgoth, I mean, Melkor, at that time appropriately, he wasn't even given the name Morgoth until later.
The
But
two names
Melkor,
mean the same thing. It's Melkor
not
and Morgoth are the
necessarily.
same. Ah, don't do that.
No,
For the
they don't mean the
simplicity of
same
most
terms.
for the simplicity
Ugh.
of most fans, Melkor and Morgoth are just the same person.
Yeah, of course they are. But the words and the term Morgoth was something that he earned as the elves named him an enemy
Right. It's
later
like
on. But
Mithrandir, Greybeard, Gandalf, Olorin. Everybody has different names. So whatever.
yeah, but they get those names based upon their actions. I mean, Gandalf was given the name Stormcrow because of his bad behavior in the King of the Golden Hall, and people in Rohan were pissed off at him, so he was called Stormcrow. But Melkor was called Morgoth because he was an asshole, and Morgoth was such a bad guy, he earned that name Morgoth. That's all I'm saying. But, you know, Morgoth is the is living through the Silmarillion and all the stories within it according to the dictates of the music that he participated in himself.
So
That's the
what?
metaphysical idea I'm getting out. Okay, there
So
wouldn't
why
have
why
been
don't but why don't you
good.
agree with this Reddit theory from the summer that the scripts being written for season 1 and season 2? Remember, we've been reporting that season 2 scripts were all written at the same time as season 1. So this all fits in. This is why we trust that. This is why we like these rumors, and we're happy. I don't know the wrong word. We are confident in the reporting of this specific rumor. You guys wanted to know what we think is real and what we think is untrue. We're going to get to that next week. But for all these reasons we just told you, that
Right.
we had told you last April that Tom Bombadil and Goldberry were going to be in the show. That checks out. And then I had heard that Bombadil was going to be a familiar face. I thought that was going to be I thought that meant an actor. But when it looks like it really meant a familiar face in universe, he was going to be the same. He was going to be Morgoth. And then
Yes.
and then for the third statement in the leak to say this long-held fan theory, and then to find this Reddit post from 2019, this rumor of all the rumors is probably the most accurate and potentially one of the most controversial. But I'm a betting man, and I'm putting all on red. Bombadil, this rumor is true. We're gonna get it to that next week. But so Cliff, you're not on board, and I saw comments in the chat room about this rumor saying this would be a deal breaker. Cliff, can you explain why fans would consider this a deal breaker?
Sure, because you are dealing with evidence that the creators of this show, under the guiding hand of Simon Tolkien, are willing to make changes that are so far afield from the basic cosmology of the Silmarillion that it is unidentifiable from the original intent of the author. There you go. Simple, straightforward explanation. It is not the same at all for Morgoth to do things that are so heinous and so evil that he is cast out of creation itself and is pushed out into the void. much less for him to be wandering around having even a stripe, even a filament of his spiritual essence existing on Earth just to do other purposes that are completely contrasting from the way the cosmology and the doom that was set upon him is really written in the book. There is no need for it. There's no need for it. It's like if you're playing fast and loose with Shakespeare and you're redoing Romeo and Juliet to the point that the two kids are not members of a feuding family. Oh, it's not really about the Montagues and the Capulets. Let's change all that and put them in the same family, and we'll make the other kid just adopted. And that's all. So if you're just going to get rid of the feud and get rid of the reasons and the major building blocks of why the Montagues and the Capulets are even at each other's throats, then you've just demolished the setup of why Romeo and Juliet are a forbidden love anyways. Why would you be so determined to play unreasonably with the building blocks of the narrative the way that Tolkien wrote it, especially in a metaphysical sense? And as I've said from the very beginning, the metaphysics of this television show have got to be right. I don't care about action scenes and someone having a battle and somebody getting their eyes blown out by a fire. I don't care. All that stuff can come and go. That's okay. We have permissible range of things that are reasonable within an adaptation. What is not reasonable in any case is to take the raw metaphysics of Professor Tolkien's creation myth and then play with it so that it's no longer true. That is not acceptable. End of rant.
I will add a little bit of conspiracy theory. Can I put my pointy tin hat on and say, if they were going to go down this route, if they were going to if they were going to justify, if they knew they were going to have to justify this by saying it's a long-held fan theory, they would the writers would absolutely want to create a Reddit post the same summer that they're writing the scripts. I would not put it past Amazon and their shenanigans to create a sock puppet account to post this theory about Tom Bombadil as Melkor in 2019 at the same time that the scripts are being written, just to CYA, to cover, and they can always point to like, oh, there was this old Reddit post. I wouldn't put it past them that they actually planted that Reddit post.
I agree.
Everything on social media is a deception, and everyone is getting hoodwinked, and I wouldn't put it past it. Personally, I love this idea. I love this chaos. I've been saying for the last year, this show gets better the crazier it gets. Let's go to the Bjorn type people. Let's talk about shapeshifters and talking Eagles and talking spiders and thinking foxes and Tom Bombadils. Let's get crazy. Let's get nuts. Let's show all of the various corners of Tolkien's imagination. Sauron the vampire.
Thank you for quoting a good Prince song. Thank you.
Sauron the werewolf. Tolkien wrote a lot of insane stuff. And I think this show would have a lot more fun because it's a TV show. And again, I hate to go back there, but I want a CW show out of this. I want my Arrowverse.
Here you go.
I want my Riverdale type show. I want my Arrowverse show. I want King Shark to fight the Flash. Whoever thought that King Shark would fight the Flash on TV? So that's how crazy this is.
Funny. All right, I'm going to lean in real close.
Okay.
I'm going to lean in real close to my microphone. I'm going to say this. Okay. All right. ASMR. This is the ASMR edition of Torn Tuesday. Welcome to our show. No, seriously? Okay, look. I can appreciate things getting wacky and a little bit off the rails. After all, it's not a single movie. It's not a single movie adaptation. It's a television show where they can have a lot of room for things to go in different directions. But the appropriate use of Tom Bombadil is not that. It is not what they're saying.
It's a cameo. He's
in
not
this leak.
Critical part of the narrative storyline. It's Tom Bombadil. He's meant to be a cameo.
So
why can't he have fun? Why can't he
Why
be
can't
a repentant,
no,
sinner?
no. Tom Bombadil was a toy that his young son stuffed in the toilet one day. Okay? What we know about Tom Bombadil from the biography, the Humphrey Carpenter biography, and the letters is that Tom Bombadil was a toy that had to get fished out of the commode one day. All right? And it was a favorite toy of the children. And Tolkien amused himself by writing humorous poetry. Okay? Go and look up the poem about Tom Bombadil and his little adventure with Stone Troll. Okay? The use of Tom Bombadil is in playful, pastoral poetry, where he has these funny little comedic encounters with stone trolls and meets the lovely daughter of the river, Lady Goldberry. It's about a fanciful, it's just about as fanciful and childlike a thing as could ever appear in Tolkien's world. And the fact that he appeared in the Fellowship of the Ring to save Merry and Pippin and Frodo and Sam from the evil Barrow-wights was pretty much a wild insertion point where Tolkien was putting a children's toy and putting him into the living, breathing fabric of Middle-earth to the point that we haven't been able to make sense out of it for 50 or 60 years. I'm telling you, back then, in the 60s, when the big wave of Tolkien fandom caught on in the North American counterculture, the biggest idea about Tom Bombadil was that he was Eru Iluvatar doing something, and Tolkien wouldn't verify that, and he didn't. Oh, look, it's like those great stories from Nordic mythology where Odin, All-Father, would come down from Asgard and actually turn himself into a mortal old man and go and knock on doors to see if people were kind and generous and hospitable, or if they were evil and would not help him. So, there's there's a bit of mythological background, a bit of Norse influence in the way Tom Bombadil might show up, and it was a fan theory back in the 60s about Iluvatar being embodied on Earth, just to explain the weird anachronism. The biggest anachronism in the history of the Lord of the Rings is Tom Bombadil. He doesn't fit. He doesn't fit at all. He is superfluous to the War of the Ring, and Professor Tolkien knew that. Therefore, any intelligent writers who are trying to adapt the story and bring Tom in should also be mindful that he is a superfluous character. He's not important. He cannot be brought in to break major points of the lore. The lore. Okay?
All
Someone
right,
said
and
Santa Claus. There you
and
go.
here's
This
what I will
reminds me
say.
of,
Here,
yes, it reminds
here's
me
what I.
of C.S. Lewis bringing Santa Claus into the Narnia story. Here you are in the world of The
Sure,
Lion, the
yeah,
Witch, and the
you don't have
Wardrobe,
to
and
explain that,
suddenly
but
Santa Claus shows up. He's
yeah,
completely
that's fine.
superfluous.
All right,
I totally,
I
that's a
I,
great
to,
analogy, by the way.
look. I
Great
told you
analogy.
guys. I just told you guys all the reasons why I like this idea. I love this chaos, and I think no matter what, Tom
Okay.
Bombadil should stay in the show. Whether they have to reshoot him, recast him, I think
Sure.
Tom Bombadil needs to be in the show for this show to
Sparingly.
succeed.
The word you're looking for is sparingly.
He's already in there sparingly. But here's why I absolutely loathe this concept, this specific use of Bombadil. Cliff just stated all the reasons why. Let me give you one extra one. We cannot be more unanimous as a fandom to tell Amazon and these showrunners, stop with the mystery boxes. And if the entire concept of Bombadil is to do a fake out with us fans, where we watch in episode 1 this big bad Morgoth, and Sauron takes up his all this stuff. If Morgoth is the big bad in the history of the creation of the world, we will see that actor's face. And if Bombadil shows up in episode 5 and the camera looks at Bombadil and we, the audience, see the same face, we are going to get nervous. We're going to get scared. We're going to get freaked out. Whereas the characters who come across him And
Hmm.
maybe it's Galadriel and her team. Maybe it's
Hmm.
it's Gandalf and the Harfoot. Who we don't know who stumbles upon Tom Bombadil, but those characters probably won't recognize Morgoth because of the time change, right? Because that's ancient history. Who would know what Morgoth looks like? Nobody. So,
Feanor, and
well, he's
maybe
not.
his,
Feanor's dead in the Second Age. There's a
yeah,
statue of him. We've already posed. My point is,
yeah.
the whole point of casting. If the whole point of casting Tom Bombadil as the same actor as Morgoth is entirely a mystery box to us fans. To fake us out in the middle of the season where they come across this character and we, the audience, are meant to get scared. Oh no, palm sweaty. Is that Melkor? What's about to happen? And then he says, oh, hi ho, Dillio, my name's Tom. Like, it's a pump fake. It's a head fake. It's a mystery box. It's a mystery
Hmm.
box toward us fans, not a mystery box
Okay.
to the characters. And to that point, it's completely disrespectful to the fandom who have embraced the Silmarillion for 50 years, who have embraced Tom Bombadil in Lord of the Rings for 75 years. It's just disrespectful to your core audience who want to tell everybody in the whole world, check out this show. Finally get to see Tom Bombadil, who have to answer all the questions from all of our friends and family. Like, hey, Tom Bombadil, is he cool? Like, did they finally do him right? We have to be able to champion that. And if the show tries to do this pump fake with like, oh, he might be Morgoth. Oh, fool you. Fool you. Maybe not. We don't know. Mystery box. It's
Right.
totally the wrong thing to do. And that's why I hate this execution. And this rumor, I think, is the most true and it's the most wrong to do. And that's why I don't like it.
Okay. Fair enough. I would love it if Tom Bombadil comes in a very super brief moment and has an acknowledgement from one of the elder characters, like Gil-galad, the High King, or Galadriel. Someone acknowledges him, and he might say something pithy about, something philosophical, and then he just dances away into the distance, dancing down through the fields and the flowers, and off he goes, being the wild, natural creature that he is. That's how you would use Tom Bombadil, so that there's a moment of having him acknowledge some of the elder statesmen who are on stage, and identifying in the chat a lot of people here saying that any of the elves who lived back in Valinor might very well know what Morgoth looks like. They might very well, and that's true. But if you're going to use Tom Bombadil, use him the way that Tolkien used him in The Lord of the Rings. Use him sparingly, and remind everybody that he's a wistful, make-believe, imaginary presence from the land, maybe from the land of Faerie. Maybe he's just an unknown entity, but don't make it be, oh, that's recognizably Morgoth. Whoa, that's Morgoth. And now he's Tom. And he's Tom trying to be a nice guy now. That's cockamamie
Cliff,
idea. It's such a
well,
cockamamie idea.
we have an updated part of this rumor, breaking news.
Thank
We
you,
have
Monica. Nice to have
we
you here,
have
Monica. Thanks for
a
joining
new
us tonight.
part of the Tom Bombadil rumor. And Cliff,
Oh, give me more.
I want your immediate reaction.
All right, give me some more. What you got?
We were told from a secret source that the intent of the Tom Bombadil scene is for Olorin, Mithrandir, Gandalf himself to recognize Morgoth and come to terms with who Gandalf is. Gandalf is meant to see Bombadil, finally trigger, and Tom Bombadil, looking like Morgoth, triggers Gandalf's memory.
So the stranger suddenly doesn't have amnesia anymore thanks to Bombadil.
Correct.
Hmm.
Correct. By seeing Morgoth, Gandalf's memory is triggered on why he was sent to back to Middle Earth, or for the first time to Middle Earth, because Gandalf and Gandalf as a Maiar will have known who Morgoth is from ancient times. And so
Yeah.
Tom Bombadil's sole purpose in the show is to trigger Gandalf's memory, and from then on, he is Gandalf.
Otaku Senpai says, didn't the show already fix the stranger's memory at the end of season 1? Maybe so. Um,
And the
yeah.
connection is, in season 1, the stranger keeps saying, "I am good, I am good." That pays off in the dialogue with Morgoth / Bombadil.
You guys in the chat are making fun of these faces that I'm making, and that my face is flushed a little bit, and I'm a little bit red, and I've got
Cliff, doesn't it
look,
work though? You're a storyteller. You've written
no,
script.
no, it doesn't
Why
work. It
doesn't
does
this
not
work?
work. Because Tom Bombadil was never back in that place of the Ainulendale. He wasn't there during the music of the Ainur. He is not one of those Maiar or Valar. He is not part of the cosmos. He was a stuffed toy that Tolkien's son put in the toilet. He's not one of the Maiar spirits. He's a kid's toy that got stuffed in the commode. That's it. Okay?
What?
He was
Why won't
he was,
you?
Tom Bombadil was a vehicle for poetic playtime. When Professor Tolkien wanted to write really fanciful children's poems, Tom Bombadil was the vehicle for Professor Tolkien to have
So
a little
treat
bit
this
of
a fantastical poem.
exercise
This whole
writing
show
poems.
is a fantastical poem. This whole show is a fantastical poem.
This whole concept of all of a sudden Olorin, let's call him Olorin, because
I'm not
that's who he would have
trolling.
been.
These are what we're hearing.
Okay, these rumors are really starting to piss me off, to be honest. And I got I've got very little constructive or positive to say about this rumor right now, except just get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. That's all I got to say.
All right.
Get
Well,
out of here.
we'll
You know
leave
what?
our final statement to this on this topic. We'll leave our final statement to this Reddit comment.
The introduction of Tom Bombadil to me, in my personal fan opinion, not that anybody asked me, thank you, but my fan opinion of reading and understanding The Fellowship of the Ring as many dozens and dozens of times as I've read The Lord of the Rings, I've lost count. Bombadil's presence is to be a creature, a presence who is outside, completely outside the box of what would be called the most watertight world building ever. Professor Tolkien was so specific in his world building, and he almost shot himself in the foot in that effort to make the most watertight fantasy world building.
Well, Cliff,
but
how about
Tolkien
this
almost
comment
stumbled
from,
himself by bringing this anachronistic character from his other children's poems and putting him into the narrative. And it was a challenge, and he had to step away from that.
Well, then
That's
respond
why
to this
Gandalf
comment
said,
from
we cannot give Bombadil the ring. We just can't. But what do you got here? What is this?
Kristen in the chat room says, innocence in nature. That's why the hobbits end up running around naked and unashamed in his presence. Melkor is not innocent.
Never. Not at all. No. My personal opinion is that Tom Bombadil is the essence of Mother Nature, but not Mother Nature in a maternal Gaia, not the Gaia spirit, but closely analogous to the spirit of nature itself. Not the embodiment of Iluvatar or Eru, not the embodiment of any mythological being in the grander cosmos, the grand cosmology of the Silmarillion or the Ainulindale. To me, Bombadil has always been what would happen, and Lady Goldberry as well. It's as if they were simply anthropomorphic personifications of Mother Nature and Father Nature, the essence of the natural world. And that's all they are. That's all I've ever thought. But the idea of connecting it in such a specific way to the existing creation myth and that cosmology does not sit right with me for many reasons.
Final question before we move on from Tom Bombadil, because this is obviously going to be a long show because we got a lot to talk about. Final question to you, Cliff. Is this treatment of Tom Bombadil kind of a fan service, fan favorite character that everybody has looked forward to seeing on screen at some point? Does this improve their 37% completion rate? Does this let people keep tuning in? Or will people turn off the show if they do it this way?
People will turn off the show if they make Morgoth and Ungoliant, an actor and actress, deliberately playing Goldberry and Tom Bombadil, and they specifically make that a metaphysical connection. And if it's supposed to remind Olorin, the stranger, of his previous memory lapse of being there back before the creation of the world, when all the music of the Ainur was happening, if that's really supposed to be the case, I'm sorry, but Tom Bombadil wasn't there during the music of the Ainur. I don't buy it. It's going to cause a lot of upset, and it's just going to cause everyone to say what they're saying now. This is unnecessarily playing fast and loose with the cosmology that Tolkien gave us. And here's a question for you, Justin. You can still get what you want out of this series, Justin, including it being a little bit wacky, a little bit off the beaten track, with tumultuous young romantic relationships that burn out and start a fire again. And these, you can get the Riverdale and Rivendell if you want, but that does not mean they still have to play fast and loose with the larger background cosmology of this story. I mean, you can have something in this adaptation for seasons 2, 3, and 4, and Rings of Power can get really wildly original if they want, but not at the expense of what they paid $1 billion for, which was to deliver to the audience the strikingly familiar stories in the appendices about how the rings were made. And one of the other big takeaways from the 4chan leak was that they are licensing the Silmarillion. Secretly, they've got rights to the Silmarillion. And if they are doing that, then the expectation is so much higher among the fan community that there would be some fidelity to those constructs. What is in the Silmarillion is so deeply held and is so formidable and is so complex, and it's really involved stuff, really involved. But they can still bring it to life and show the music of creation, and they can show Myron slash Sauron. They could have Mehron being there with Melkor, and they're all making discordant music while the other Valar are making beautiful, beautiful waves of harmonious music. They can be really ambitious, and I applaud. I will be the first person in this room to applaud the producers for being that ambitious to show us really cool creation mythology from the Silmarillion. But they don't have the license to, they don't have if they have the license to access stories from the Silmarillion, it doesn't do them any good, and it does not benefit the production to go wildly astray from it. Can I just say that? All right. I just said that. There you go.
All right.
All right.
All right. You just brought up the next thing we were going to talk about, which is the second biggest news. Let me change this camera. The second biggest news out of this release of leaks is that Amazon has acquired parts of the Silmarillion. Let's go down to the actual language in the leaks. The top thing is Amazon got the rights secretly to the Silmarillion. The opening scene of episode 1 is Eru using the secret flame to create Morgoth, and Morgoth watching as Eru creates all of the other Valar and the Maiar. So that's the first thing in this thing. Amazon got rights to got secretly the rights to the Silmarillion. I heard that last summer. We heard a little spy report that Amazon did have some rights to the Silmarillion stories. And it is not a complete, total license to the Silmarillion. They're not adapting the Silmarillion. They don't have full rights. They're not going to do Beren and Luthien and all that stuff. What
Not
what
now.
we have heard,
Not now. Yeah.
what we heard over the summer is that the Tolkien estate has approved additional stories and characters that were exclusively in the Silmarillion to include in the story and in the show. And this makes sense. If episode 1, as we've long reported, if episode 1 is the retelling of the history of Middle-earth, but from Sauron's perspective, and now potentially from Morgoth's perspective, and we will see the creation of Melkor, Morgoth, the Valar, the Maiar, Arda, if we're going to see the entire history, the biblical history of Middle-earth, then the only way to do that is to get parts of the Silmarillion as the rights. And so there's been a lot of debate on whether this could be true. The purpose of this show today is to tell you why we published this and why we think it's true. Let's start with the beginning. November 13th, 2017. Amazon to adapt J.R.R. Tolkien's fantasy novels for television with a multi-season production commitment. This is the original press release from Amazon and the Tolkien estate announcing the partnership. I want to be clear. Everything stated in this press release is contractual obligations. Any rumor that you hear that Rings of Power will be canceled is false. According to the contract, because the Tolkien estate insisted, they didn't want Lord of the Rings to be treated like a Netflix show. The Tolkien estate insisted that if you're going to start the show, you have to finish it. Jeff Bezos will make sure that this story is seen all the way through all 5 seasons. Period. End of story. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. It's in the original announcement. So that is the original thing. It says...
So you're definitely telling us that they're going to continue with 5 seasons no matter what, even though we just last week acknowledged that Warner Brothers Discovery had a big contract with J.K. Rowling to do 5 movies of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And they stopped at 3,
and
they're not going to make movie 4 or 5.
Correct.
So
not guaranteed.
You never know when these contracts are going to change and things are going to go in another direction. You really don't know.
So that was in November of 2017. 5 short months later was this Hollywood Reporter article with a graphic that will be my favorite graphic ever produced for this show. I just love it. The Hollywood Reporter reports on the inside Amazon's deal. And it says right here, the attorney who served as the chief architect of the deal and repped the Tolkien estate was hammering out terms that include a potential spin-off. So the only thing that's potential are the spin-offs. I think we're going to get spin-off announcements after season 2 is released, but that's my only gossip today. So he says this is the most complicated deal I've ever seen, but it was handled relatively quickly in a way that brought all the parties together. The parties of this deal do include New Line Cinema, Warner Brothers, Amazon, and the Tolkien estate. It says the Tolkien book rights have long had a complicated history. And it talks about how they went to MGM and then Saul Zaentz and then Miramax and then New Line finally made the movie. So he says right here that and this is where the 1 billion number first came from, and it turned out to be true. So spin-offs are optional. The 5 seasons is guaranteed. All right. Then the fans this week found this article quite interesting.
Okay.
Here is Embracer Group from 2022. So we've gone from 2017 to 2022 now. 5 years later. Embracer Group announces the acquisition of Salzance, a.k.a. Middle-earth Enterprises.
Right.
Look at this first paragraph. Let me bring this full screen. At this first paragraph, it ends with the iconic fantasy literary works The Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, as well as matching rights in other Middle-earth related literary works authorized by the Tolkien estate and HarperCollins, which have yet to be explored. The fans were considering that this meant that if the Silmarillion was up for sale, Embracer Group would have the first right of refusal, the first right to purchase. But we've been trying to find out actual details on this. We're still waiting on official confirmation from everybody. But from some people that are close to the lawyers involved, they basically say this statement just says, if the Tolkien estate gives Amazon anything, we get it too. That's our current understanding. That may change. But this statement, matching rights in other Middle-earth related literary works authorized by the Tolkien estate, means that if Amazon does it, so can Embracer.
Oh, I see. I see the connecting tissue.
So then we looked at the Vanity Fair articles. And here's Vanity Fair saying, what did Amazon buy? And they say, we have the rights solely to the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, Return of the King, the Appendices, and the Hobbit. And that is it. We do not have the rights to the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, History of Middle-earth, or any of those books. That does take a chunk of lore off the table and has left Tolkien fans wondering how this plan intends to tell a second age. They say, there's a version of everything we need for the second age in the books we have the rights to. As long as we're painting within those lines and not egregiously contradicting something we don't have the rights to, there's a lot of leeway and room to dramatize and tell some of the best stories that Tolkien ever came up with.
Right.
So they're hinting at that. And then, Cliff, I believe you and Fellowship of Fans have separately reported that on a case-by-case basis, Amazon has access to things if the Tolkien estate approves of their use. So, I don't want to go there. So we've done some further research, and folks, if you go to SimonTolkien.com, he has updated his website since we did our report on him 3 weeks ago. And the first thing on Simon's website is Simon Tolkien is the grandson of J.R.R. Tolkien and a director of the Tolkien estate. He is also series consultant for the Amazon series Rings of Power.
Okay. Well, that's new. That's a new update. Okay.
So here 3 weeks ago we did a show on Simon Tolkien. I recommend you go to our YouTube channel and watch it because it's a fascinating look at the man and who Simon Tolkien is. So there he is on the first sentence on his website is now he is involved with Amazon series Rings of Power. Here is a video. I don't have the video queued up. Never mind. But we've
Oh.
played a video of Simon basically saying his problem with Peter Jackson's movies is that they were too faithful.
Hmm.
Too faithful.
Yep. He
And
was in an interview. He was in a, I think he was in a radio broadcast. He was being interviewed, and he actually said something to the effect of there was a lot of praise for Peter Jackson's films, but my issue with them was that they were too faithful and they put too much into the films and were too, what did he say slavishly faithful? He didn't, I don't know if he used that word. Maybe not. Far be it from me to put words in anyone's mouth, but yeah,
right.
that was a an interview where he admitted that having so much faithfulness to the story almost crippled the effort. That is what he revealed when saying that, as if identifying that fidelity to Tolkien was a problem for the efforts of Peter Jackson, and I'm not entirely sure.
So so
No,
we so we know that Simon Tolkien is in charge of the estate and is involved in the TV series and is very proud to be involved in the TV series. So
yeah.
based on the Embracer language,
Hmm. Which is
based
intriguing. That's very intriguing language. Yes.
based on all of the Vanity Fair articles and the Hollywood Reporter articles, Simon's website and everything, our best expectation is that the show does have some rights given from the Silmarillion, not blanket storytelling, but they are using things from the Silmarillion, like the creation myth, and uh, and now that's all. Nothing was for sale. But Cliff, I want to get your vibe on it. Do you think this rumor is true that the show is operating under the Silmarillion license?
Yeah, I do think it's true because I really think if we're talking about that opener, the big season 2 opener is Sauron telling his own story from his point of view. I'm really willing to bet that they would have reached into the rights of the Silmarillion to produce, for the first time ever, an adaptation of the Ainulindale, the Ainulindale, the music of the Ainur.
And the only
I'm
way they could
I'm
do
I'm
that is with
I'm convinced. I'm convinced already that this is really going to happen. I
yeah,
really am.
and the only way they could do that. Oh, I might have it working. Hold on.
Okay. Oh, good. Show it.
Let's see.
General terms, what does the family think of the adaptations um, of Lord of the Rings? And then I don't know if you've seen any of The Hobbit yet.
No, I can't tell you what happens in The Hobbit, unfortunately. I know that would be good. I don't really know about the family, but I know what I thought. I kind of liked the first one, but I think the thing with films is that they kind of have to exist in their own right. And my problem with the films was really that I think Jackson was kind of too faithful to the book. He kind of put too much into it, and so there was too much going on. I would have liked more character and perhaps following his own course.
There you go. So there's Simon Tolkien in his own words, and again, you can go to our YouTube channel and find the Simon Tolkien episode because it's a very insightful on the man that is currently making the decisions and approving the lore changes that actually go into the show. The lore stops with him. Is that a fair statement, Cliff?
Yep. Well, let's refine that statement a little bit and say the lore as it is adapted into this television show stops with him. That's a more accurate way of crystallizing that thought.
Okay.
Well, I gotta say, I'm just delighted. I'm just delighted that we're all here talking about this right now. And
should we talk about the third biggest controversial thing?
That Sauron had a son? Yeah. Yeah, we should. Let's. Yeah. What do you mean I blurted it out? We published this days ago.
All right,
so,
let's go to the tape. All right, what did 4chan actually write?
Oh dear.
It's one
Oh dear.
sentence. It's literally one sentence, 3/4 of the way down. Below, Rafa Fast is a character, which we believe is Radagast is a character.
Yes.
It says Sauron had a son who Adar killed. That's all. That's all. One
That's
sentence has made this fandom a fury. Fury. Cliff, why are people so mad about this sentence? Sauron had a son who Adar killed.
Because he didn't. That didn't happen.
Neither did the raft. Neither did the raft. Neither did the Mithril leaf. Neither did two Durins living at the same time. Let's not even get to how insane that is. Why do you have an issue with Sauron having a son who Adar killed?
Professor Tolkien was really, really specific about the limited number of times that a Maiar spirit would make physical form and stay in the mortal world to live and reproduce and get married and live a life as a creature in the mortal world would.
Cliff in the chat room, Paul in the chat room says, okay, my brain has officially melted. Did your brain melt, Cliff?
Yeah, my brain did. In fact, I'm barely able to scrape what's left of my gray matter off of the floor. And I'm gonna have to use a wet Swiffer to clean my floor. I need to clean my floor now because my brains are on the ground. Honestly, though, if we're looking at Thingol and Melian, okay? There's the main time when a Maiar spirit took the form of the physical and lived a life on the surface of the planet. And it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. Tolkien never dreamed it up. There was no artificial second guessing the professor on this. It's not like there was an unpublished manuscript somewhere. There wasn't. Not even in his discarded notes. This idea doesn't exist in anything that's in print, and it doesn't exist in his discarded notes. So why do it? Why even do this? Why do this?
And by the way,
daft.
Evil cannot create.
Idea.
It can only corrupt. Isn't that what like a certain subset of fandom likes to quote? If evil cannot create, how does Sauron make a son? And who's the mother?
We're talking about creating original beings like into existence, like God created Adam and Eve. That's what we're talking about. Create. We're talking about the metaphysical manifesting things into springing into existence, not the tried and true method of sexual intercourse to exchange chromosomes and a seed, an egg, and a sperm. We're not talking about zygotes and biology here. Okay? When you say evil cannot create, they're not talking about zygotes and biology.
That's fine. Okay, that's fine. And by the way, according to the rules of Middle Earth, whatever that book was, elves are pregnant for what, 100 years or something like that. Like, we don't even want to go there. But in the game Shadow of Mordor, didn't Shelob take on the form of a beautiful woman and try to seduce Sauron? So if the games
that's all cockamamie stuff. That was fan fiction that never existed. So why are you pointing to that as an example?
Well, but we still have a good time with the games, and the games are still fun to play. Why is this a deal breaker for the TV show, but the games get a pass?
Thank you, Higgy Baby. Higgy Baby has put me in the corner. I'm the health class teacher, teaching sex ed class 101. That's cute. Thanks. Now I get to live through that. No, that's an unfortunate misnomer, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
So the chat room wants to know, why is Mealy in the case?
That is an interesting question. That's a very interesting question. Why would Melian and Thingol be this one unique case, the most unique and visible.
And by the way, we
Case.
just talked about the rights. We just went through the rights that they have. And, according to everybody, is that they don't have the full rights to Silmarillion, so they can't tell the story of Thingol and Melian. So what if they could tell that story, but through the characters that they have access to? Why is Sauron having a son such egregious bad behavior to you, Cliff? I don't understand. If it's true to Tolkien through other characters, why can't it be applied here?
Okay. I think you might know the answer before I say it, Justin, but I'll try. Real quick. The reason why this is an egregious type of approach, this is an approach to adaptation which I call too fast and loose. It creates much deeper cosmological problems than it helps for the effect of dramatic impact in a television show. It is so not true to anything that Sauron ever did. I mean, introduce this concept later on in the Third Age. Why wouldn't Sauron have wanted to? I mean, actually, after the destruction of Numenor, he was no longer capable of taking physical form or a fair form. We know that. But if Sauron had the ability to explore his legacy and to extend his evil plans through
body,
making, then don't you think Professor Tolkien would have seen the wisdom in that? And he didn't. Professor Tolkien saw no wisdom in allowing that to be part of Sauron's story, and neither should the showrunners. I got to fall back on that. You might not be satisfied with that answer, Justin, but it is egregiously playing with the stated facts that are in the history of that character, Sauron. And in my mind, it adds needless complications. It adds confusion instead of clarity. Look, the real way you want to make good adaptation is to take things that are confusing and make them more clear or crystallize them, honestly, to make them more approachable and digestible. I am not at all convinced that Sauron having a son is going to make their work as TV show writers any easier. It's getting into a real thicket of bad ideas that go against what Tolkien wrote, and it will just complicate things very badly. And I just...
Isn't this the melodrama we expected out of a television series, though?
No, you don't expect stuff to happen that never happened in the books to this degree. Not to this degree. I mean, it's okay to have a village. Oh, there's a village of human people living in Mordor before it was ever called Mordor. Okay, that's true, possibly, and it fits within the world. It doesn't break the cosmology.
Fine.
It might have been a little detail.
Maybe
it was a detail that Tolkien overlooked, and didn't write about. But okay, I'm okay with there being a community of people living in Mordor before it became actually the inhabited kingdom of Sauron.
Understand?
That's okay.
You don't like it. Do you believe it though?
No, I don't. Oh, wait, do I believe it? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I certainly do. I do believe that Sauron, I mean, Charlie Vickers, Halbrand wanted to kill Adar for a really specific reason that we don't know yet. And I got a feeling that this little reveal ties into why Adar is using that language. Did we show that? Did we show that little bit?
Well,
did you pull that up yet?
Again, next week we're gonna debate with a big panel of fans on whether we think these are true or false rumors. But here we go. Here's what you need to know of why we reported this rumor, why we're not being sloppy, and why we reported this rumor right now as true. This is an actual quote from season 1 of Rings of Power. Adar has been fighting Halbrand Sauron. Adar looks Sauron straight in the face. Sauron has him pinned down with a spear in a very religious overtone. There are famous paintings about Saint Michael battling Satan in this exact type thing. And this is actual dialogue. Adar says, "Did I cause someone you love pain? A woman? Pause. Perhaps a child?"
Mm-hmm.
This is an actual quote.
Yeah, that's why I think this rumor is way, way stronger. And I also got to agree with people in the chat who say that Sauron would never have had a son because he would not want to share power with a son. And it ties in with a familiar piece of dialogue that Gandalf has in the movie. There is only one Lord of the Ring.
All right,
he does not share power. So I get that. That's a great addition.
Do you want to respond to Cecilia
process
here, where she says, "I think Adar is speaking in code. The child may be a creation or plan."
Maybe so.
I don't think that is code, Cecilia. He literally says, "Did I cause someone you love pain?" So he's talking about, did I cause someone you love pain? He's talking about a person, not a plan, not an abstract idea. He's literally saying, did I cause someone you love pain? Was it a woman? Perhaps a child? Cliff, I'm just, now that I'm reading this on the air, I'm realizing, in my mind, I thought Sauron might have an adult son. He might be teenager. He might be Theo's age. Maybe he is Theo. I don't know. But he says here a child. So are we going to get like child abuse in this show? And is that antithesis to Tolkien's writing demeanor? There's no child abuse or child
endangerment. No. Except for the rumors that Smeagol, when he was in his early years of being enraptured with his new ring, that Smeagol would run around from village to village stealing babies from their bassinets. That's the only time that Professor Tolkien makes a reference to infanticide, and that is the word for it.
We got a comment in the chat room from Mark that I think I agree with, but let me read it out loud. Mark in the chat room is saying, Tolkien never said Sauron never had a son. Okay. No, I am not satisfied with saying that Tolkien never said something means it's never appropriate for this series or in breach of the lore. Evil created plenty of other things in Middle-earth, regardless what that often quoted false quote says. Sauron trying to have an offspring as an entity makes perfect sense to me and a great new addition to the mythology.
Okay.
And I agree.
Cool.
You know what?
Okay.
I'm going to agree with this. I like the idea of Sauron having a son. I like the idea of Adar killing his son. I like the idea of setting up the entire armies of Mordor as, from the get-go, always fighting each other. There's constant infighting. Whether it's the two orcs that took Frodo hostage and took him naked and stuff like that, and they fought with each other, and the orcs and the goblins fought each other, and Gothmog fought. Like, the orcs are, the armies of Mordor are always fighting with each other. And I like the idea that from the very beginning, these two guys, Adar and Sauron, fighting with each other, it starts at the top. It really does. And they set the tone. The top sets the tone for everybody that comes below. So I like this idea that they're constantly fighting. And people die. People close to them die. A child dies. I also like the idea of Sauron having a son and losing that son and realizing if his legacy is to continue to influence it's not through the human concept of childbearing. It's through
Right.
the creation of a permanent ring. It's through the creation of a powerful tool versus the idea of creating a family legacy. And I like this. I think I might like this idea of Sauron. These are some of the reasons Sauron creates the One Ring. Cliff.
I just found something really interesting that says Tolkien states in his essay, Asanwe Kenta, that the Valar, and by extension the Maiar, could indeed have children, but they chose not to do so. Okay?
They chose not to.
So all of the Ainur, including high-level Valar and lower-level Maiar, are equally capable of having children if they wanted, but they specifically chose not to, in order to ensure that they do not get bound to their physical form, as was the case with Melian. That's intriguing. So, I'm sure there's a lot of other theories about that. And I'm pretty sure that in the published histories, Melian and Thingol were the only situation where
Well, they don't have the rights to that, but it's
right,
according
but
to
still.
Tolkien's notes and letters. The other thing I want to say that might validate this in particular. Let's go back to the Vanity Fair first look, Cliff, shall we?
Okay.
Let me bring it up full screen. The description. This is the Vanity Fair first look from January of 2022. It says Charlie Vickers as Halbrand, a new character who is a fugitive from his own past. This is language approved by Amazon.
That is language meant to set up the mystery box.
We don't like it. The article in Vanity Fair first look goes on to say, speaking of Sauron, the villain's presence is a major factor through the Second Age, culminating in his resurrection as a tyrant. There are only hints of the danger to come. Some see them clearly, others don't necessarily want to. In the novels, these things take place over thousands of years, but Payne and McKay have compressed events into a single point in time. It is their biggest deviation from the text.
Right.
And they know it's a big swing. I think we know that's a lie now, don't we, Cliff?
Yes, we do know.
Quote, we talked to the Tolkien estate, says Payne, which means Simon Tolkien. If you are true to the exact letter of the law, you are going to be telling a story in which your human characters are dying off every season because you're jumping 200 years ahead in time. And then you're not meeting really big, important canon characters until season 4. Look, there might be some fans who want us to do a documentary of Middle-earth, but we're not going to tell one story but we are going to tell one story that unites all these things. Cliff, do you want to comment on that? I can't hear him.
Okay, yes, sure, I'm back. They set us up with that. That language is just a setup. It's a setup to reassure us reassurances that didn't pan out. So that's kind of disappointing.
Okay, so these were just reassurances before season 1, before everything went off the rails.
Yep, hollow reassurances, I must say.
But
okay,
but
wow.
It's important to highlight this because they say we talked to the Tolkien estate, and if you are true to the exact letter of the law, you're going to be like everything that they said here is in conjunction with the Tolkien estate. And as we just established, Simon Tolkien updated his website saying he is deeply involved in Rings of Power, as we just played that video of Simon Tolkien saying Peter Jackson was too faithful. So, for all these reasons, again, people complained that we were being too loose with leaks, and these are just 4chan nonsense. But Cliff, based on these comments, based on Simon Tolkien's comments, based on this actual line of dialogue. Oh, by the way, this is the other thing I wanted to bring up. In Empire magazine, no, this is Vanity Fair. Okay. In a post season interview, McKay says, later in Numenor, somebody asks him, "What's your name?" And he says, "That depends." And they say, "It depends on what?" And he says, "How close we are." McKay says, "We tried to set it up where every single line would be true to a certain extent, no matter who Sauron is." Let me repeat that. Showrunner Patrick McKay says, "We tried to set this show up, where every single line would be true to a certain extent, no matter who Sauron is."
Okay, right.
So, anyone in the chat room trying to discount this line of dialogue, saying it's just not true or it doesn't mean what it means, we have Patrick McKay on the record saying, no, everything that is said in this show means what it's supposed to mean. So to that end, I'm putting a 99% likelihood that Sauron has a child and is killed by Adar is a true leak. Cliff, do you have an opinion?
Yep, I do. And I'd be willing to bet that's also a true leak. And I don't like it. It's going to make things too complicated thematically, and it also is playing too ridiculously with the cosmology of these entities, and it's going to cause confusion because Sauron and the other characters who are Maiar spirits, they need to live and breathe in the heads of the audience as Maiar. They shouldn't be confused as being mortal with all the trappings of being immortal or those things. So it really should be that these characters are represented as supernatural, not as, regular mortal that just going to have kids and worry about their legacy that way. So it adds more complications unnecessarily, and I really don't like it. It's just daft. But
All
okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there you have like 3 of the top rumors. We could go through all of them this week, but we're not going to. We're going to save that for next week, where we're going to have a panel of fans from all different walks of lives and perspectives, and movie lovers and book lovers and video game lovers, and familiar faces, longtime staffers, and longtime editors of thewandering.net who have a pretty good sense of when things are fake and when are real. And I hope today's show has been able to we've been able to share with you guys some of the background that we have to validate these rumors. We did not post these willy-nilly. We did not post these just like, oh my God, it's on 4chan. Let's put it on the onering.net. As we've just shown today, 3 of the biggest rumors actually check out in a big way. And that's why we ran with it, because there is very strong kernels of truth in these leaks. And I think more than 40% of them are true. And we might find out next week that most of these might be true. Cliff, do you have an opinion on that?
Yes. I hated being quiet for so long about the Halbrand reveal, and I'm glad now to just get it all out so we can all just talk about it and throw our ideas at the wall and see what sticks, you know? And I appreciate during Seventh asking, why would Sauron even love the child when he loves himself first and foremost, let alone a female to allow the child? It makes zero sense. Yeah, I'm agreeing with
He
you on that.
tried to pursue Galadriel in season 1. We're talking about the show The Rings of Power, the one we all saw, right?
Yeah,
This
but
isn't a documentary of the
he didn't
books.
offer Galadriel romantic marriage. He offered her a seat of power, a seat of sharing autonomous control. And it's obviously a lie because he does not share power. And all of it was a lie. All of it was a great subterfuge. But maybe season 2 will explain how Sauron ended up being on that raft in the middle of the ocean at that exact right time. Such crazy stuff. Well, okay. Dear, oh dear.
Well, next week we'll go into the full list of rumors, including a deep dive into Celeborn, something we've been sitting on for a long time, as well as talking a little bit about the Iulindale, the creation myth.
Ainulindale. Try it with me. Ainulindale. Say it with me now.
Ainulindale.
There you go.
Ainulindale.
Now, I used to say Ainulindale, but that's not right.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. So we'll go into a lot of that, and you guys can explain to me what that creation myth means, and what the color of the fire, what the importance is of the color of the fire, and if the fire is cool to touch and the one ring of power is cool to touch even after it's been thrown into a flame. There's a lot to digest on next week's show. I think the biggest controversial thing, of course, is Celeborn, that we've been sitting on for so long. But in light of these new rumors, the Celeborn stuff is even less. It's
much
so
less
much
shocking
insanity.
now.
But
Yes.
on today's show, I really wanted to show you guys the three of the most controversial things that fans have been talking about all week, and show you why we think it's true. And I think the chat room is now up to speed on the proof. Cliff, final thoughts on the reaction from Daily ROP and some others on the act of leaks, and should we not do this, and should we not do it this way anymore?
Look, I can really appreciate the people out there wanting us to report on things only when we know 1,000% that it's black and white on paper, it's really real. I can appreciate people not wanting us to report on things until we've got all the ducks in a row and all the confirmations triple checked. But it doesn't serve. It doesn't serve the purpose for the community to share their thoughts and to bounce ideas off of one another until we get in front of it. The longer we keep silent about it, then the further forward it's going to get away from us. Do you know what I mean? I mean, in context of
the closer we are
what if we do have some power as a fandom to influence post-production and the editing on the show? If that's the case, then great. Let us flex our power as a fandom and let us make known all of our things that are delightful. Hey, it's really delightful and cool that this is happening, but this is not cool. And here's why it's not cool. And if we get that out in the air, then the show runners and the production are not going to get so far away from us. They'll be able to reckon with our tastes and our thoughts, and they'll be able to reckon with the conventional wisdom of the fans because we took all the time to let it out in the open and address everything openly. That's my final thought on that. We are better off for addressing everything openly for the sake of not letting them get away with stuff that we don't want them to get away with. And if they do, then they've known years ahead of time how we really feel about it, and it's nobody else's fault but theirs if it turns out that way.
And
So,
say it
there you
with me
go.
once again. No more mystery boxes. No more head fakes,
No.
pump fakes. No more. Ooh, let's get ahead of the fans. If
Yeah.
you really think that the fans being ahead of your show in the narrative is a crux, then you got to rethink your entire relationship to this fandom and this franchise and Tolkien's legacy, because Tolkien was so open with the fans. There's a book called The Letters of J.R.R. Tolkien with a newly revised edition that's only 3 months old. He was so open with fans that there's a book about his writings to the fans, answering every little question, every stupid question that fans have. He would shut fans down or he would support it. But Tolkien himself established this relationship with his audience 70 years ago.
Agreed.
And
I fully support you on this.
the idea of making mysteries out of this is antithesis to J.R.R. Tolkien and the relationship he developed with his own audience. We don't want to be surprised. We want you to tell a good story so we can champion it to everybody that will be surprised. That's my final thought.
Well done. Well said. And we thank you, everybody. Again, we thank you for sticking with us for a 2-hour and 20-minute conversation. This is lovely to have you all with us. As usual, my hat is off, and thank you to the chatters, the wonderful comments, questions, and academic corrections. I always rely on you guys in the chat to help me check my head at the door. Really grateful to all of you for joining us in a very open-handed, egalitarian conversation. If the show, The Rings of Power, is going to do better than getting 6 out of 10, which is what everybody rated it from season 1, if they're going to do better than 37% or 36% completion rate, then it behooves the showrunners to listen to the conventional wisdom of the fandom. That's what we're all here to talk about. It behooves them to pay attention to the limits of our taste and the desires that we have for this adaptation. So, the more we get it out in the open, the more it could be a win-win situation for everyone. But off we go into the beautiful, chilly night of a January evening, and we leave you with this final thought. Be kind to one another. Please be good to one another. You know, we are all we've got with each other. We've got to support and be kind. We've got to get through this life. Let's do it. And until next week, everybody, we will see you here at theonering.net for another episode of Torn Tuesday, where we will include all-star panel guests coming in to share their thoughts and to get more specifics into the details. We're going to get a little bit further into the weeds with this whole leak. And, you know, in light of the studio being so silent, I'm grateful that we have something to talk about now, legit. We have months of conversation worth to get out of this, and I'm grateful for it. So thank you, Justin, for pulling all the strings and the levers, and thank you for being that delightful little man behind the curtain, as you always are, and producing the show with me and co-hosting with me. I thank you, Justin, as much as I thank you, beautiful audience, for being with us. Until next week, take care of one another and look after one another. We will be here at 5 p.m. Pacific time for another Torrent Tuesday. Point your web browser to theonering.net for more news and late-breaking details. You can find me on social media at QuickBeam2000 on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find us at The One Ring Net. Just take out the dot. Just like that. The One Ring Net. And you can follow us and join our Discord. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. And I'd love to say, as I usually do, good night and good luck. Or better yet, buenos noches y buena suerte. Bye, everyone.